welcome to another review of First Minister's Questions from Holyrood. The usual crew are all present. Phil Attridge, Alex Grant, Norrie Stewart and myself, Stuart Lockhead. Today's FMQs was almost entirely about the IFS economic report and two widely different interpretations. I have to say I was struck by the fact that Salmond took a positive tone towards the report, completely positive tone towards the report all the way through, regardless of the questions he was asked, which I think made it rather difficult for the opposition to get to needle him.
Well, I mean, I thought it was very clever, because basically he said, yeah, why should I object to it, why should I be upset about it? It totally backs our position that Scotland more than pays its own way, Scotland more than
Yeah. Would you like to concede that?
And the UK will run a huge deficit.
Well, essentially, without actually saying it, I think he maybe did say it.
I did say it.
You know, well, obviously we're in total agreement that Scotland more than pays its own way, because if you accept this report, that's in it. So from that point of view, yeah. Alex made the point during question time that he would like to see him maybe be a wee bit more hard hitting. We take a different position on that. I think they're playing it right. There's quite a lot of stuff on Wings, which I'm in on every day, which essentially is they've got to play hardball. No, I don't think they do. The No campaign has fired off all its ammunition. The Yes campaign haven't. And I think they're going to be much more effective when they do get nasty, which I think they will have to do at some point nearer the vote.
Alex?
Yeah, I agree with all that, and Norrie's right. That my inclination, given my background, it's generally always been, but not totally, one has to confess, that you should have a very strong rebuttal strategy when the opposition, whoever that might be, competition in my context, attack you. And I've been disappointed on a couple of occasions that, for example, John Swinney hasn't been ballsy enough on occasions to rubbish some of the disingenuous stuff that's being peddled. However, I think today the IFS was the obvious target. The opposition said the obvious things. Alex Salmond, you're quite right, he decided to take well, actually, I agree with what they say, and you've got to concede the first part. You've never conceded, of course. At no point did any of the unionists reply to and respond to any of the points he was making. But I still think, and it's a moot point, I still think that it would be better to say everything he said, which I thought was excellent, but to say on top of that, even with the pessimistic forecasts about oil production and oil price, we still believe we have a strategy that can fix that. I'd ask you to tell me what the strategy is for the UK. And by the way, all your mates are suggesting you're actually going to, if we stay with the UK, it's going to get worse anyway because you're going to reduce the amount of money we've got. So it can only be worse than the IFS report. But no, I think it was a fairly, I agree with Norrie. I probably would have done what I've said, but you could well be right.
Phil?
Yeah, I think Salmond did very well today. And talking about that, I think they are really the hard-hitting stuff will come from Salmond after the white paper's issued, because that's when the whole thing will start concentrated. And I thought, like Norrie said, I thought it was really classic to treat the report as something positive. Well, not treating it, it actually was positive, because they did give that idea that, well, that's if you're in the UK. And what the report has said is that if you're in the UK for the next 50 years, we're basically up the swanning.
Well, you will become dependent on the rest of the UK, allegedly. That's what that's suggesting.
And also what was alluded to through there, but didn't get out, but will probably come later on, and what will happen, that project over the next 50 years, if the UK leaves the EU, which I should imagine will compound it all.
Yeah.
And then you've got Joanne. I mean, it was sitting there listening. I mean, the whole point is none of them could respond to him. There's no way that she can respond to anything, because she just reads from a script.
Yeah.
And it just gets so frustrating, particularly when some bunch of numpties gave her the Debater of the Year board did the other night.
Some bunch of numpties. The Herald.
Yeah, the bunch of numpties, and that'll do. But they obviously listen and don't watch. Then you had, well, I think Ruth Davidson was. Yeah, the question seemed alright. She looked unusually happy. I suppose she's got some good reviews for once with her speech. But then again, I can never hack Tories trying to tell us about finance when they're messing it up. Willie, well, he was totally and utterly irrelevant. But when it comes down to the main opposition, Joanne, it was just droll. And I love the bit at the end. The drug taking, porn watching, financial advisor to the Labour Party, the Reverend Paul Flowers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Absolutely a classic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On you go, Riff.
Yeah, destroy an ethical bank.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's terrible.
When
It's to throw an ethical organisation, not just a bank.
when the Labour Party or Joanne Lamont's speechwriter, when is he going to realise? She going to realise that Fred Goodwin is a bad way to go?
Yeah, but if you live in that
Every
world,
2 or 3 weeks they bring it up.
as if it's got something
They
to do
gave
with
him a
salmon.
knighthood, and he was an advisor to them.
Yeah,
Salmond wrote him a letter.
I know. But the trouble is, Norrie, and it's just, I would offer you a parallel with the trams. When you're the government, they can always attack you as being liable for anything. Again, as I say every week, I don't know what the average guy on the Clarkston omnibus is thinking about this. The average Labour supporter, I have no idea. They don't live in Clarkston, do they?
No, the Tories in
The
Clarkston.
Tories in Clarkston, I forgot about that. So the Pollock bus then, whichever. But it's an easy line of attack. Whether it succeeds or not is a $64,000 question. Sorry.
Well, no, just going on from that, picking up that bit on a bus, and this is purely metaphorical,
Right.
of course.
As a bus
But
driver.
he should come out of that Parliament, get the number 36, sit in it for around 20 minutes, get off at the Dean Bridge, and jump over it.
Who's this?
Joanne, speechwriter, of
Paul
course.
Singleton. Paul
I-
Singleton. I do think the backbench question though was good. That led Sam into that point about what was I going to say about the co-op bank and whatnot. Is that what led him into it? I know the back, because I thought the backbench question was
the
about
Fred Goodwin one.
the Fred group. Okay, sorry, go on.
But I don't know. I thought she was doing quite well, and then she just let it all slip away.
When you think about it, to some extent, Salmond's position today is actually probably a rehearsal for Tuesday.
Yeah.
But he's flagging up that what he's going to be pushing is that with the as he said, with the fiscal powers that he's asking for Scotland, an independent Scotland, be able to grow the economy, retain our young people, attract more young people, and get a bigger tax base, which is totally it flies against the face of everything the IFS seems to be suggesting by its summary. I mean, I haven't read the report, but I'm aware of many reports that say one thing but are summarised by somebody else. Some apparatchik produces a summary to suit a political agenda.
These reports are made up, I mean, particularly this one, by a bunch of right-wingers. I mean, Paul Johnson, that's all you really need to say, and all the rest. They're all down to interpretation, and all they are actually is pushing forward their agenda. That's all it is. There's no great shakes. I mean, this whole idea, oh, the report, now it's official. This is what I was getting from alleged left-wingers in the Labour Party. They're, oh, well, now it's official. This right-wing independent think tank has just said everything us lefties agree with, and you're going, hang on, these people are just a bunch of walking contradictions. They'll say anything.
Did you see?
You're right, but look,
Oh.
bear in mind, something else that struck me watching it today was that effectively what we had was a complete attack on by the Unionists on the quality of Scotland's people,
Yeah.
and it's our ability to run our own affairs.
Which is consistent.
Every word, every line of Joanne Lamont's attack wasn't actually attacking the SNP. She thought it was, but it was attacking the people of
Scottish people,
Scotland.
no, it's
Yeah,
fair.
they're a bunch of unconscious Fincanites.
The other line that I've kind of been waiting on coming out on the sort of comedy side of the debate is if the independent Institute of Fiscal Studies is to be believed, why isn't the independent Scottish National Party, independent of Westminster, equally believable? They have no ties to Westminster government,
Yeah, but
so why are their figures any
but-
less believable than the independent?
well, they're a political party. It's
No.
always easy to claim that this think tank is independent, just like they claim the OBR is independent. But the interesting thing for me is one of the difficulty, what that report said and what Salmond started to articulate is, we're all in the shit, eventually. However, we're actually quite well off at the minute, but we're not allowed to enjoy the benefit of it because it keeps going south.
Well, according to the report, we're not in the shit till 2040.
No, I know, and to
25 years.
to forecast 25 years ahead is a nonsense in any case. So it's he is quite right. I wouldn't have thought of doing what he did. I've got to say, the more I talk about it, the more I give him credit for being positive about it. But the actual thing he needs to be able to say, but it's a very tricky thing to say, is look, even this right-wing outfit have admitted we are in surplus. So we're in a better situation than the rest of the UK. If you read the real economic analysis, it says our deficit is only as big as it is because we've been subsidising the deficit created by the rest of the UK.
Quote, our tax revenues have been going south.
Yeah, no, right, no, it's
In
great.
both senses of the word.
Right, and what he actually has to say in effect now, people have to take on board is, we're actually in a very strong position. If we keep that strong position, we can do things to fix the future. If we vote no, we're going to give away that strong position to Westminster to blow on HS2, Crossrail and anything else they feel like, because they will do it. But it's quite, I think, I've always thought there's a slight danger in some people, because the Scots are daft enough to do this, to actually say, oh, right, okay, I believe that economic situation, but are we actually going to be nasty to our pals down the road then and take the money away from them?
Oh, you're abandoning the working classes.
but
Well, that's what the Labour Party said.
Oh.
Well, I mean, our man from Wales that came up to tell us that he's got a veto on whether we have a currency union. When did the Welsh First Minister get a veto?
Oh, he doesn't.
When somebody else
decisions?
Look, as was pointed out, Carwyn Jones is doing a propaganda job for the Labour Party because he's taken his 30 pieces of silver. He asked for what the Silk report offered him, and they were being a bit hesitant about giving it to him, so he said to them, if you don't give it to me, I'm not going to support your cause about the union. So they gave it to him, so he's supporting the cause. But that's great. As somebody pointed out earlier, the fact is, he has suggested that we should all stay in a union. The Barnett formula is wrong, the inference of which, although it wasn't as explicit as this last night, has been in the past, that actually Wales should get more, Scotland should get less. So before you even get to the consequences of the IFS report, if we believe what that guy says, we'll actually be worse off before we start if we vote no. And that needs to be hammered home.
Well, there was an interesting figure online this morning before it came out. They talk about losing 4 billion.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, apparently the figure that Better Together quote for us being subsidised is actually 14%, which would make it 9 billion.
Right, okay.
Which is a nice round figure because it means the 9 regions of the country would get $1 billion each, except for Scotland, obviously, so London could get an extra $1 billion.
Well, that's
Just
it.
thought I'd point that one out.
Well, the more people we get to quote, the more people we get to quote that if we vote no, we're going to end up with less money. And I think one of the interesting things about the British Aerospace Portsmouth debacle is there's a lot of MPs and newspapers and whatever now wound up to suggest that despite the fact they lost the same number of jobs as we lost, and they're 10 times the size of us, they were hard done by for political reasons. So there's more of this bile going to come out about these bastards are getting too much, and if that gets across to the Scottish people, that's great.
Well, did they not get it? Did they not hear it from Portsmouth? They heard it when they were going around interviewing these people. The fact that they still have 11,000 jobs,
yeah,
and they've lost 940. Up here we've got a few thousand. They've got more jobs down there than the whole of Scotland.
And we lost 850.
Yeah, and they're sitting in, and they're all I mean, you can see it. I mean, sorry, but the working class down there, a lot of them, if they're in it, they couldn't give a shit about these colonials.
No, but they believe we're being subsidised.
Oh yeah.
The impact on Scotland, percentage-wise, jobs was 0.03%. The impact on England of losing those jobs was 0.002%.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger impact.
The whole point is
not one member of the media pointed that out.
Yeah, but you're right. What you said about they think they pay for everything. Scotland, as far as the average punter down there, and I mean, when I was down at a birthday, listening to intelligent, supposed to be intelligent, professional people. Sorry, basically Scotland is a basket case. It doesn't produce anything.
Yeah.
We just subsidise it.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of whatever. We're just a bunch of fuzzy wuzzies with kilts on.
Yeah, no,
You know.
that's true. And the more they say that, the more that will get seen up here. That's great.
Excuse me?
Fuzzy wuzzies with kilts on.
I'm sorry, you've not seen all that ginger? Yeah, you know, the big... Oh, I think you're thinking, you see a bit...
There's two things we need to happen, guys. What you've just described, more and more of it in the media, and UKIP storming ahead. Those two things, allied to what Eck was saying this morning, will certainly help drive the yes vote.
Well, when you think about next spring's Euro elections, how well do you think UKIP are going to do?
Very well.
No,
Even in Scotland?
No. But they'll do
UKIP
very-
So
it's an
English
organisation in
thing.
Scotland recently, I think, have they not?
It's an English
That's right,
thing.
yeah.
UKIP are more Tory than the Tories. We don't vote Tories in. Can't see us.
And I mean, given the comment,
Plus,
the
UKIP
leader
are-
makes a comment that the Scots are a bunch of tossers standing on a squealing bagpipe moaning for more subsidy from the English.
Yeah.
That's going to get them votes.
Well, that...
Who are racist when this halfwit comes up with his fags and his pints and he's stupid enough to tell everybody where it
They've
is.
actually just imploded in Scotland.
Yeah, I know. I've read
Half of them
that.
have resigned.
That's good. So there's no problem in Scotland, but they'll win. If they don't win all the European seats, please God they win all the European seats in England, because if they do, the Labour Party and the Tory Party will go even further right, and that'll drive it.
Well, I think
I also
on
think,
that trajectory
I also
anyway.
think that what raised its head, the Barnett formula, when the Welsh Nat came up.
It was last night's speech.
Welsh Labour, not Welsh now.
Sorry, well, I meant Britain Nat, actually.
Okay,
Welsh
that's
Welsh Brit Nat, first
Well, that's
Minister
the
of
Welsh
Wales.
nationalist. they're
Brit
good
Nat
guys.
Troll.
But will that not come into play for the European elections? Will UKIP not use that for the English vote?
Oh, I know.
I think they're daft enough because they think the Scottish Parliament should be abolished. So they will certainly, in my opinion, attempt to appeal to English voters by saying you are being hard done by. The only reason they wouldn't do that is if they actually thought they stood a chance of gaining some votes in Scotland, and that would be counter to it. And because I don't believe they think they will do that, they will definitely go for broke on that and say the Westminster government is allowing you to be screwed by the jocks. So that'd be perfect.
And actually, next year, what Salmond and all that, when it comes to the European elections, you should turn around basically, if you're not an SNP supporter, then you should plead with them to vote for a pro-European party. Because Scotland is a European country. Once you step down, and I'm not being stereotyping, but sorry, once you drink that water down there, you turn into some half-witted, xenophobic, we hate foreigners, doesn't matter where you come from. And they very, very much are like that.
I had an interesting thing happen to me yesterday. I was in Great Junction Street in Leith, and there was one of the Roma sitting cross-legged begging, and an old guy walked past her, and as he walking towards me past this woman, and all I heard under his breath was, "Get out of my country." Scotsman. I was really quite, took me aback a bit.
Well, I think that's not a surprise to me because that problem we've got less of it than England. I mean, we've been lucky.
We've got about 200 in Edinburgh.
There's a lot more in Glasgow.
A lot more in Glasgow.
It's a fair old
But you'll find the
community in
ones
Glasgow.
begging on the streets is the women. The women are taken out and put in the streets, and they're found in parts of it. What they're doing, they're putting them on the streets to take the shoes.
Well, this wasn't an excuse to start discussing Roma, and I'm going to slap your hand.
No, well, that's it. The whole point is, yeah, there is the odd xenophobic up here. But
No, there's
Well, I
not.
just-
No, we're
The
not-
thing I
we're not
think,
free of it.
the reason
Oh, no.
I mentioned the Barnett formula thing was because I think that's something that people understand. They don't understand the consequentials. I'd like to see figures on that. How much money we should be getting out of Barnett consequentials with the various infrastructure builds that are going on down south that we're not getting. Because I think we'll find that we're not getting extra money when you look at it from that point of view.
Well, we're not getting it. Well, but by definition, the Barnett formula gives us an amount of money less than what we generate. So we're definitely not getting extra money, and we know there are things to which they will not apply the Barnett formula. So, it's all in their favour, but they try to pretend that it's not.
But then, what you just said there, right? You know we're getting extra money. Then
I
tells
didn't say
people. Yes, you did. You just said we're getting extra money.
No, you said no, we're
We're
not
not getting extra money.
I must have missed
No,
another.
you missed that. No, the point I was making to Norrie
You
is,
don't have to argue about it then.
well, we do if he doesn't, if he thinks the opposite of what I said. You know,
Albert,
we are
on this
not,
side, you have
we
to-
are not getting extra money, but the English believe we're getting extra money. Now, the question I always have with all of this, because the way the media works is, are there a lot of Scots sitting there who actually think we're getting extra money, as opposed
Yeah.
to understanding the fact that
Yeah.
we're paying 1,700 more than we, or 1,500 more than
Oh,
we pay back?
most Scots believe that because they watch the news comes from London, and that's what London news keeps telling them.
Well, they need. That's why I keep saying it's the economy's stupid, and the only way to get to them is put stuff through their door and tell them that. Because if they keep relying on the media, it ain't going to happen.
The whole bit about the Barnett formula is right. Scotland, because of the Barnett formula, gets more money per head than the rest of the UK, leading people to think that they're getting more money.
Yeah.
Even getting that extra money per head,
Is
they're
less
still
than we
getting
generate.
it's less than we generate.
They're our tax.
So it's but the whole way it's put forward is we are getting more money than others, but we're not getting as much as we put in. So we're not getting. It is. It's hard for people to get their head around it. But going back to what Norrie said earlier on about 9 billion. And this is slightly off it. So that's 1 billion for each region. So London gets 1 billion, which is what Boris needs for his bicycles, so they don't get flattened.
No, but I just
Cycle
thought I
waste.
just thought it was strange.
That was
because
news all week.
The 9 regions of the UK,
Yeah.
of which we are one. Well, obviously Scotland wouldn't get one of those
Are we not
billions
10?
because it would be taken out of our budget. So where would the extra billion go? Would the 8 billion go to the 8 regions? Well, obviously it would have to go to London,
Yeah, but
which is now, where did I see it? Somebody in one of the main papers admitted that London was more subsidised than anywhere else.
Of course it is.
London is. Well, London let's be careful about this. London gets more spent per head on it than Scotland does. If we say, as we do, as we know, that Scotland is actually generating sufficient tax revenue to justify that expenditure, I presume London is generating as much tax. So London isn't getting anything in a selfish sense that it doesn't deserve any more than Scotland is. But the papers will never tell you that London gets more per head than Scotland, because they don't. They're not interested. They're interested in telling you what Scotland gets relative to all the other regions of the UK.
Right then, gentlemen, let's try. Can we go for the scores doors, or George Dawes, or whatever they used to say?
Stuart, you first.
Okay, I thought Alex was. I think he took the right line, which was not to refute the IFS report, but to say, yes, look at all the figures in there. Look what it actually says, not the summary as portrayed by the unionists, and he stuck doggedly to that line. He had 2 or 3 good little quotes himself. At some point, was it him? You might know, Ruth was speaking, must have been speaking. IFS is not alone. There were all these reports as well as the IFS. And
We didn't really mention that. That was quite authoritative.
but
the way
did
she
somebody
laid it.
shout Private Fraser, or was it? We're all
it was me.
doomed?
No, they're all shouting
They were
doom,
shouting
doom,
doom,
doom.
And what about the quote that we get? We won't get Doctor Who, but Doctor Who is shown live in 75 countries simultaneously.
Well, you get it online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, and of course the tax, our tax is going south. And I think he had quite a few quotes himself. So I'll give him the regular 9, I think, because he did well. Joanne, I don't know, 4. I'll tell you why. Because she just did it, she does the same thing every week. She's got her script. She can never respond to anything he says, ever at all. She complains all the time about his response to her questions, but her questions are almost usually all lost in the middle of a speech.
Yeah, but it's patently obvious her comments of that sort are there. Whatever Salmond was going to say, she'd just be saying it.
Absolutely.
But did you not think she was really quite nasty? I was.
I agree with that. I thought she was insulting throughout.
Yeah.
And every time
She
she
was also
stood up,
extremely
she was
nervous.
absolute-
She was also
absolutely
extremely
insulting.
nervous. if
It
you
was
watch
very unparliamentary language she was using. Maybe she was watching PMQs yesterday and got the idea from there, because I think they were all pretty insulting to each other in the Commons yesterday. A lot of mud was thrown.
Yeah.
Ruth, well, she stuck to the IFS report. Was she shot down in flames? Probably. What was I say? The ageing profile of the Scottish population. Perhaps we should be looking at the ageing profile of the Tory party.
Yeah.
That was a Salmond line, so he got her there as well.
He did.
I'll give her 3. Willie, predictably, I'll give him his due, he stuck away from toddlers because there was a report about toddlers,
He went with
2-year-olds.
its other one.
He went for his other one, which is the centralisation of fire and police services in Scotland, and stuck to that. He took the quote from Sir Stephen House, the Chief Constable of Scotland, and apparently, I thought Salmond's rebuttal was terrific, because Salmond simply said, well, you just took 2 words from Sir Stephen House's, what he said. Here's exactly what he said. But again, it was what you'd expect him to go for.
I just thank God that there's not a proposal for police children only nurseries, because they'd be the
Police
same
children
person.
only nursery. I'll give him 2. I'm being positive all the way down the line here. Presiding officer, she didn't have much to do this week. Very little to do. The desk banging was restricted. The cat calling was quick from the back benches. It was always quick. They didn't go on and on. So no, I'll just give her 5 because she didn't have much to do.
Phil?
Salmond was in his usual form, very kind of laid back, very, very comfortable in his answers. Not smirky, jokey, or smart aleck as they call him. So yeah, 9. Thought he was quite good. Kept them all in their place. I'll start at the bottom, Willie. Again, what is the point of Willie, Rennie? Picking those two words out of the report with a silly little smirk on his face. What a gall must be idiot. None. I'll give him 0. Ruth, actually, yeah, she came along. She was looking really happy. She was good. She wasn't reading off a script. She came back again as we were talking about other reports. She came across as a confident, in charge of a brief opposition leader. So I'll give her. She's a Tory, right? So, but I'll give her 4, right? Yeah. Joanne was totally and utterly negative, totally reading from her script, and I'm sorry, it's just this debate with you, having a look at it, and yeah, like Stuart says, I think she was just being unnecessarily nasty. No need for it. I mean, Salmond is not nasty. He'll sit back and he'll laugh. I mean, he could really be nasty actually with some of the things she says. She doesn't respond at all, so she doesn't debate. Yeah, I'll give her 4 tops, and that's only out of loyalty. Being a party member, that's it, 4. Oh, and the presiding officer?
Not for long, mate. I hear on the grapevine.
Oh, she needs to. She should be for the jump. Oh, sorry, they'll chuck me out, fine. Yeah, no leash then. See me with a leash on. But the presiding officer, I forgot that. I don't think she did particularly well today, so I'll give her a 4 as well.
Alex?
Right, start with presiding officer. I give 5 to, because that's neither here nor there. Well, she didn't have anything to do particularly, but I generally think of her as not the sort of person you know is going to make a mark on the event. So sadly, 5 is pretty mediocre. So I'll give her 5. Alex, I'll give 9 to, because I still maintain, whilst I agree that you may have a point, that certain things you should keep his powder dry on. I still think he could have stuck the knife in a couple of things and I would have asked the others some direct questions. I mean, I'm almost inclined when they ask him a question to say, well, I'll tell you what, before I answer you a question, you tell me this, and ask a question about the Barnard formula, ask a question, of that sort. Anyway, so I give it 9. John Lamont I give 3 to, because she did the obvious, but what she could have done, in my opinion, is said, it's all very well for you to say an independent Scotland could do things to change that outcome. What are they? Because I actually think, for example, because I read the Scottish Government's financial report this week, and whilst it was very good at marking what hadn't happened and the deficiencies in my opinion, why we're not better together, and maybe this is going to be addressed next week in the white paper, please God that it is, there was nothing in it that said, here's what the UK government has achieved by doing these things, we're going to achieve it by doing these other things. So it was an obvious line of attack which either Joanne Lamont or Ruth Davidson could have taken. Ruth Davidson took a slightly more comprehensive approach. I agree with what Stuart said about she quoted a whole bunch of things and tried to say there's 10 different organisations say you're in the shit. She doesn't leave herself open to the private Fraser accolade. But the fact is, they could have said, well, you came out with you had the opportunity the day after to tell us how you were going to fix it. Now you're standing there telling us, well, we can fix it. That's hardly good enough, is it? So I think she missed the trick. So anyway, so I give Lamont 3. I give Ruth Davidson 4 for being slightly better at it. Willie Rennie, actually, I'm inclined to give him 4 as well, because I think his line of attack, I am concerned about lots of stuff that he said, whether it's believable or not, I don't know, about the integration of the police force and how it's working. And whilst he did quote a couple of words out of context, the fact is that what the man said was, it is not our policy to do this, but it is happening. If Alex Salmond could have stood up and said, and he says it is happening, but it's only happening on a relatively small basis, it's bound to happen. You have good days, you have bad days. No one says the police force is set up never to have a policeman in uniform doing backroom stuff. So I give him, he's better than Joanne Lamont in that respect, in my opinion, because of the content of his points. I give him 4.
I think it's a real major change you're getting there with the police, so you and a lot of resistance, so you need to give them quite a wee time to bed in.
Agreed, but it is a very good line of attack.
I agree with Alex. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Well,
been concerned at
I've
the
got a lot to
centralisation
say, yeah, so
of powers, especially police powers. I mean, that's obviously a risk that you've got, especially in an independent Scotland,
Yeah.
where
You
police
see,
are not properly
I'm
accountable.
not the least bit concerned,
You know.
because they'll abuse their power, whatever.
All right, well, that's
And
very
then they'll have lots and lots of inquiries that won't tell you anything. All I have to say is, Hillsborough.
I wouldn't mind the Lothianisation of Scotland. I do object to the Weegisation of Scotland.
Okay. Look, there's another point just worth making. This I went to see Andy Whiteman last night talking about. It's published some time ago, but talking about his book about the poor and no lawyers, and his central thesis in all of that stuff is one of the bad news bits about Scotland. And Scotland is probably the worst country in Europe in this context in terms of centralisation of power. If the SNP, please God, don't say something about this in their white paper, it's a huge, shooting themselves in the foot, because telling Scotland we're going to make it more democratic, I mean, it may be the right thing to do, assuming the only point, in my opinion, of centralising all the police forces in Scotland was to save money. There wasn't any other good reason for it, as far as I'm aware. So if it saves money, but you've got a local council that actually has some teeth, and because we don't have local councils with any teeth, we have a withering away of local power when every other country in Europe is way at the other end of the spectrum.
No, well, that's fair enough.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, one thing about a
true.
single police force should be consistency.
Yeah, but you can have consistency. There's no problem with having consistency.
Well, there is. You immediately, I mean, one of the huge problems at the moment is the way the new police force is looking at what was an acceptable thing in Edinburgh, which is the licensing of sonar.
Well,
Not that I've ever been in one.
not have I, but I agree with you. And the point is, the head of the police obviously thinks that's the right thing to do. It's not up to the police.
Should be up to the local council.
Well, it should be up to the local council.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making. That can lead to confusion. If one local council has one policy and another has a different
That's fine.
policy...
Well, that's the argument of
and they're in charge.
centralisation.
Yes, if you happen to travel between those particular constituencies...
Well,
Different problems. It happened here because we had different problems.
I can live with that problem. The idea of local democracy, let me tell you, I would suggest to you, Norrie, is something which most people would sign up to. The reason why people don't vote anymore in this country is they don't believe that their vote is worth a monkey's
They have
fandango.
no influence.
They've
Fair
got no
enough.
influence.
That's fair enough. Right, the scores.
No, you're not getting them till I score them.
All right.
I'll give the presiding officer 5. Willie Rennie, what really annoyed me about him was when Alec gave his answer, Willie Rennie sat back sideways on and looked up at the ceiling.
And he practiced that
He
all
wasn't
night.
interested. He wasn't ignoring him. He was just bored with it.
Yeah, but that's rolling
And
your eyes.
if that isn't the message he was supposed to give out, that was the message I received. And I'm sorry, he cannot afford to be that complacent.
Well, some of his voters
You know?
might say that's an okay response, because what he was doing was rolling his eyes and saying, this bastard never
Now, what
answers
do you
my
score him?
questions.
I'm giving him 1 for that. I mean, I agree with Alex. His question, I thought, was pertinent. I agree with you. It's an area that they're weak on, and it should be hammered. Ruth Davidson, I was quite impressed with today. I thought she did quite well. She's not hiding to nothing as soon as she opens her mouth, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's right.
But I thought she of the two sort of heavy hitters. I actually said that, I didn't mean it. So I'm going to give her a 4 as well. I'm getting annoyed actually with Joanne Lamont now. She should not be allowed to get away with. Basically, every week she accuses Salmond of being a liar, a sneaky, and she's getting away with it. The presiding officer should slap her down.
Yeah, good, fair point.
If she can't treat people in the chamber with respect, she should be slapped.
And she's setting
down.
a standard for the other Labour politicians in
Well,
Scotland.
she's setting a standard for Scottish politics and how they're viewed elsewhere. I'm sorry, she might not be First Minister, but she's Leader of the Opposition, and I expect her to act
Like a leader.
with respect for everybody in the country. Even some of the things she says regarding the Scottish population is disrespectful.
Oh, yeah.
And she thinks she's entitled to do it. I'm
And
sorry,
what the-
she bloody
I mean,
but Salmond was
she-
quite good. He
but
said
she,
he voted
but
for me.
she, every time she says she attacks the SNP government on fiscal issues, the Labour backbenchers all say, "Oh, they think it's wonderful," and yet what they're supporting is putting Scotland down, putting people down.
There's the problem. It's infectious. And I'm sorry, I do not want a Scottish Parliament to end up like a Westminster Parliament. I mean, they do not.
Well, it
They
is.
do put people down, but they're much smarter about how they do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that is basically screaming at your neighbour over
Aye.
the back wall. And
Come on,
I'm
carry on
not
scoring
happy.
because we're running into
So I'm giving her a
a
1.
long one.
Alex, I wasn't that impressed with him today. His answers and everything, but he needs to enunciate clearly just on delivery. I'm sorry. It's important, Alex. You look stupid if you run your words and you don't put your sentences
He
together
didn't.
properly. It just
Stop
takes a
your
bit of
words a
breath.
bit.
He's trying to get too much out.
Oh, he was asked to hurry up at the end when he did that. Just
Well, he did it earlier than that, and
He's
it's
the
a
boss.
small thing, but it's important. I mean, you think about we could see him if you were listening to that on radio.
I'm not exactly sure what comment you're talking about.
Well,
but,
he
A
did-
couple where he fluffed and got his words the wrong way around.
And he doesn't need to do that.
He didn't end doing as
He
bad as
doesn't
Cameron
need to
saying
rush it.
magnanimous this week.
Oh.
Well, I mean,
You know.
but he can take his time.
Yeah, well, okay, but it's a minor point.
It makes him look.
Is that
harassed.
magnanimous?
So he's only getting an 8. 15, 19.
Scores.
7, 12, 15, 8, 9,
Bated breath.
18,
Oh,
26.
it's a close one there. I wonder who's favourite.
Yeah.
Right, from the bottom up, surprisingly,
Second.
Willie, I'm a useless tosser. A 7, Ruth Davidson, I'm a fascist. 15, J Lo, 12, Ruth Beer. And AS way ahead, Alex, 26. Presiding officer second with 19. I think she needs to slap somebody down.
Yeah, she does.
She
Yeah.
will. And she should be able to stop people with that permanent sneer on their face like you have with Joanne. It's I don't
That's
know.
nothing to worry about. Let her carry on.
Right then,
Yeah.
ladies, gentlemen, and thank you very much for the review today, and viewers, thank you for watching. We return next week, and hope you, if you were watching our live experiment, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.